I think the ultimate problem is not so much Biden's treatment of Joe Manchin, but it's the fact that he didn't even seem like he cared about the policy in the first place.
It's not these policies that you're supposed to be fighting for. It's your pet projects because you're a rich white dude who doesn't give a f about anything else in this country. 15 hours, 15 hours, 15. That's all you think about. That's all you know about. Probably because you heard it fall out Bernie Sanders' mouth, and that's it.
100%. Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. That's why.
Not fair. You can't say that's a fair point. That just completely contradicted every single thing you just said.
I will
check the tapes on this. I can't wait to find records of you saying, "Oh yeah, Trump's going to get Mike Johnson confirmed in his first vote. He's going to get all of his cabinets picked. He is going to get the one big beautiful bill."
You go to war with Joe Manchin. You say, "I'm going to primary you." Block. Hold on, wait, just hold on. I'm going to your mom, and I'm going to primary you, and we're going to like you, okay? And then he says, "You know what? I don't like this at all. I'm an independent. You guys don't get the majority. That's that."
So are you stupid? So the response, Manchin is not bullyable, is a response to your question is, why don't you bully? Okay,
that wasn't my f***ing question.
Why don't you bully?
It literally was.
The Democrats thought they could people and lie to them about, "Oh, we're actually fighting for $15 in minimum wage," or, "Oh, we're actually going to cancel your student loans," when they never had an intention of doing it. They rolled over immediately, so they lost and handed.
Never had the intention of doing student loans?
No, they did not.
Well, why did he do it?
Oh, the Republicans struck it down. That's what the Democrats always say.
The court struck it down, bro. What do you mean?
That's why we got to pack back the court. So, Hutch, again, I agree with you. Biden's first 6 months more legislatively successful than Trump's, but hasn't Trump surprised you? I know he surprised me. I know he surprised a lot of people on Twitter when we're like, "Oh, they're not going to be able to get Mike Johnson confirmed as speaker. They're not going to be able to get this continuing resolution passed. They're not going to be able to get the one big beautiful
You
bill
believe
done."
that, Josiah?
And
really
Wait, who was saying any of this? To pass any of these things, all they needed were simple majorities, right? Wouldn't everybody have thought all of these things were coming through? Am I missing something, or?
that?
And they have knocked one W after another. They have defied expectations. When it looked like Trump was down for the count, he squeaked a win.
No.
I am so confused about that analysis. I thought they were always going to pass their continuing resolution. They might quibble over some of the finer points, but it's just simple majorities they need in both. It was just simple majorities they needed in both houses.
He was down for that's not true. Wait, that is so not true. Trump has, and this I think goes to Zach's point. He has a force of personality and is able to influence his members of Congress to do shit that that is against their interest, against their constituents' interest. You look, for example, I know you guys talk about Josh Hawley because I think I saw a video of you guys talk about Josh Hawley. Like, Josh Hawley puts a stake in the ground and says, no, on Medicaid, I'm not going to budge, and this is really important, and he budges. And so, if you actually decide, and I have to question you, you actually thought they weren't going to be able to get Mike Johnson as speaker? You actually thought they weren't going to be able to pass a continuing resolution? That shit was baked in when they won the election, man, because Trump actually has that force of will.
They got it done the first time. They got it done. They got Mike Johnson confirmed on the first vote.
That's one way to spin it. That how long did that take? That took like how many votes to get that done?
Wait, no. I think we all had because I think we all had. Maybe there was one. Maybe it was peaceful. I can't remember. I think we all had doubts that he'd be able to get his full cabinet confirmed. I think that. Well,
I had no doubts. No, I said everyone was.
Like I said, maybe it was you. Who
maybe it was.
I'm going to go back. By the way, it's going to be a sacrificial lamb.
Yeah.
So totally crazy. I'm right.
I'm actually going to go back and check Pisco because you came in way too hot.
No. Check
don't worry. We'll check the tape. We'll check the tapes on this. I can't wait to find records of you saying, "Oh yeah, Trump's going to get Mike Johnson confirmed in his first vote. He's going to get all of his cabinets picked. He is going to get the one big beautiful bill passed."
I did, bro. I really did.
Absolutely did.
That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, but also, I think to Josiah's point though, there was I think a general expectation that there would probably be more reins on Trump than or there'd be less reins on Trump than there had proven to been. I suppose, right? That he would probably have a little bit more problems getting various things done. And he's also, I think,
believe that, Convoy? You believe that?
I think also, I think
an idiot. Are you sure?
There's also been,
Are you sure?
There's also been a lot of things that Trump has done that I think probably did generally surprise people, like even political commentators. Like, for instance, when it comes to things like just like completely shutting down entire government agencies, right? Like the
Department of Education,
Department of Education, right? And I think as well, like I think there was a Supreme Court ruling that came out. I think it might have been just today, actually, that said essentially, you can substantially cut these agencies or withhold funds. And who gives a about Congress? Essentially, originalist Supreme Court, quote unquote. Like, I think that's a pretty surprising thing from most people's perspectives. And people have to adjust their priors, but there's something to be said, I think, about Trump's over performance, I guess, relative to his first term in a number of ways.
But it's a misrepresentation of the truth to suggest that Donald Trump just doesn't have to abide by the checks that, people like Joe Biden did. Like you mentioned the parliamentarian, and I think you're like furthering this narrative that...
Yeah, I'm curious. Am I overestimating my predictions, like with Trump coming into office? Or am I just misremembering? Or because I feel like we all knew it was going to be really bad because he was going for cabinet picks that were unhinged compared to last time, that he knew that he had to remove the guardrails and pick like as many sycophants as he could. I thought we were all kind of like thinking that was going to happen.
That the Republicans get everything they want when they elect Trump, and then we elect Biden, he just throws scraps at us. That's kind of the narrative that you guys push, right?
Yeah, I stand by that. I think that his entire presidency, that's why he was a one-term president. Yeah, usually if you're a really successful president, you get 2 terms. He got 1 term.
Well, let's interrogate that a little bit. You guys blamed the Senate parliamentarian for the $15 an hour minimum wage.
No,
I don't understand how you reached that conclusion.
Failing on one of his primary campaign promises to the American people, and the minimum wage in this country hasn't been raised since George Bush.
Well, what should he have done?
Fired the Senate parliamentarian.
What would that have accomplished?
there would have not been the person standing in the way of that issue. Another one would have cropped up, and I would have advised that he deal with it swiftly.
You still didn't have yes votes from either Sinema or Manchin.
I think you can deal with that if you're the president of the United States. To Pisco's point, he expected every single one of those people to fall to Trump because Donald Trump will exercise power within the Republican Party.
Not everybody did.
Not everybody did. You never work again. I think that Joe Biden could have done a lot more to put his thumb on the scale to get Joe Manchin.
First of all, yeah, we need IRI here for the actual numbers. There is a bit of a difference in that Trump's Senate is not split 50-50, right? Because Trump has had a couple people that aren't coming along, but he doesn't need all of them. Am I making this up, or is it 54-46? Ballotpedia, Senate, 53-45. Who are the two independents? Regardless of even who they are, even if they were both vote Democrat. Donald Trump doesn't need every single one. Biden needed every single Democrat, including Manchin and Sinema, to come with him on any votes. And he still passed a lot of legislation. Trump needed Vance to tiebreak vote on the continuing resolution.
Get into specifics. How is he going to pressure Joe Manchin?
Go to his district, hold a rally, talk about how this guy.
What you're going to go pressure the most contested district, the most conservative district, with who? Manchin for a time was literally the most popular senator in the entire United States. Why do progressives, these guys are progressives, aren't they? They must be. Only progressives say like this. Oh, just go pressure him. Go pressure him? Go pressure Manchin and say, what, you're going to run another Democrat in fucking West Virginia against him and beat him? What?
I'm on the scale to get Joe Manchin.
Get into specifics. How is he going to pressure Joe Manchin?
Go to his district, hold a rally, talk about how this guy right here is standing in the way of you getting a minimum wage. Call it the minimum wage rally. Have 100,000 people show up. Have Bernie Sanders speak at it. Have every single.
You're going to bring Bernie Sanders to West Virginia? Didn't they try to primary Manchin with a progressive, and it was like 35-65? He got annihilated. No, Manchin, Ballotpedia. Can I see? What am I looking for? 2024. Congressional? No, I can't navigate this website. I'm a retard. Okay, committee assignment. No, U.S. Senate. Okay, search encyclopedia. West Virginia elections. 2025? Was that when they tried to? No, it was like 20. No, when was he up for re-election? Wait, let me check. Okay, 2010. Senate seats are 6 years, right? So it would have been 16 and 22, right? So West Virginia 2022 elections. Am I making this up? Ooh, nope, not in 2022. 2023? 2018 to 2019? Why did they just not have election? Oh, never mind. Oh, this isn't even the right thing. Also, I need primaries. God damn it. I shouldn't be using Wikipedia. We should be using Ballotpedia. We should learn to use this website better. Oh, 2018 was his Senate election. And the primary was, I think this person was a progressive. 70-30 was the split on this. Is an American activist and politician who was the Democratic nominee in the 2020 U.S. Senate election in West Virginia. Supports Medicare for all, 15 an hour minimum wage. Even the policy that they want to attack Joe Manchin on, she supported. And West Virginians uniformly rejected her. Jesus. Okay.
Person have Kamala Harris speak. Bring out Barack Obama. If you can't have Michelle Obama speak,
Sorry, what
get
state
AOC on the stage. This is how we're going to raise.
Yeah, he served in West Virginia. Thank you. Jesus.
It wasn't a district. It was a state. What state did he serve again?
West Virginia.
And then how did they vote in the last election? Do you know?
Yeah. Do you think that they would all vote for a $15 minimum wage? They would. We voted for a $15.
Why does? Oh, I'm sorry. I keep saying why. It's literally progressives. Remember, the progressive mindset is everybody agrees with their policies. If they don't, it's just because they haven't heard them yet. But or the pollsters are lying, or something else. Manufactured consent. Noam Chomsky.
$15 minimum wage in the state of Missouri. And guess what?
Trump
we also voted for Donald Trump. Unfortunately, people are heterodox. Same thing happened in Florida.
It's a Trump plus 40 state. Whatever leverage you think Joe Biden had in West Virginia, you are deluding yourself. Like, I just want to ask you.
That's because people don't show up to vote in West Virginia. Look at how many people are registered to vote compared to eligibility in West Virginia.
Can you simply accept that sometimes presidents are going to be constrained by the Congress, that it's not just as simple as them wielding the bully pulpit? Are you willing to concede that sometimes presidents don't get the things that they want?
How would we know? He didn't do that. He did not do that. He did not make a single effort. He stayed in his basement and he said,
He negotiated bills that he could get passed, and he didn't waste time fighting for something like firing the Senate parliamentarian that wouldn't change the outcome.
To give a right-wing, watered-down infrastructure bill so he could claim victory after he rolled over completely.
I also think, as I was talking about earlier in the show, Joe Biden of 10 years ago absolutely would not have taken that bullshit from Joe Manchin. Are you kidding me?
Absolutely,
do you know who Joe Biden is as a politician?
For the record,
do you know who Joe Biden is as a politician? Because if Joe Biden actually been in, if he had actually been in office, when he, are you going to finish the point?
Okay, sure, go ahead.
Okay, because I can't focus with that either way. If you actually knew who the politician Joe Biden was from his previous era, he would not have allowed his signature piece of legislation to be embarrassed in the way that it was by the likes of Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. He didn't even threaten to facilitate a primary against them. As soon as Thomas Massie starts talking to Donald Trump, Trump's tweeting about how they've already recruiting candidates to run against him. And with Joe Manchin, it's like there may be some disagreements with this fine and honorable member of the.
What is Massey? What district is this guy in? He's in fucking Kentucky. How did Kentucky vote? I don't know it off the top of my head. My guess is they were probably a pretty Republican state. No? Kentucky. Ballotpedia. Maybe it's super blue and I don't fucking, who knows? Let's check. 2024 election. That was only by 1.5 points. But still, Trump has power here. He can bully these people. And he does this all the fucking time. Manchin announced he will be retiring in 2024. There was no way to primary him anyway. Oh, if that's true, then that's another point against it. That's the whole thing. That's national. Oh, wait, just kidding. I was going to say, damn, I didn't know Kentucky was such a close state. Wait, what the holy shit. Wait, am I reading this right? Okay, is this a plus 31 state? Holy shit. Okay, well, these are not comparable things, all right?
Caucus from West Virginia, and let's go talk about it privately like gentlemen. No, Zach is 100% right. You're the president of the United States. You go to his home state. You embarrass the shit out of him. Even though Biden's not very popular in West Virginia, you at least try. And there are Sanders
very popular.
People that are popular. Kentucky has a Democratic governor. It's not impossible to reach these people. They're not just like 100% Democrats suck. I hate all Democrats. Like, no, if you actually put it to them in a way that makes sense, these states, which by the way, within the last 75 years, were all blue states. Yeah, you can convince them to fight for something like minimum wage. You can convince them to take out their anger on this politician who's single-handedly holding that up. I don't know. I don't think it's that crazy to at least try. And that was another issue with Biden. His whole posture, he just exuded weakness. Trump exudes strength, specifically to his base, less and less with every passing day. I think he's kind of fading in that capacity. But for a while, he was a master at getting people in line and on message. He turned the entire party into a reflection of himself. You know what I'm saying? Like Biden couldn't even pretend to try to do that. And again, it might have been
that Donald Trump did when he was president. What was the first thing he tried to do legislatively?
In which term?
The Obamacare thing.
Oh, you mean in the first term?
Repeal and replace the ACA. He failed.
He passed a tax incentive for rich, and also he had to repeal and replace Obamacare. I don't know.
The first thing he tried to do was repeal and replace Obamacare. Was he successful?
No, John McCain stood in the way of it, but that was because they had personal grievance. Okay, do you not remember the whole problem?
Do you think that Donald Trump could have used the bully pulpit to force McCain to vote in the way that he wanted to?
I think that Donald Trump, if he had been a more deaf politician, would have absolutely gotten John McCain to go along with it. And if he hadn't said, I like the ones that don't get captured and made fun of the man's military record, he would have absolutely gotten it.
Yeah, because the thing about Trump is he doesn't actually give a fuck about the actual policy. Like, he's never really been someone who cares that much about getting policies passed. It's a cult of personality. If he was a sophisticated politician, yeah, he wouldn't have pissed off John McCain in that sort of way. Not that he totally didn't care about that, goal of repealing and replacing Obamacare. I'm not trying to seem like he didn't, but I don't think that he cares as much. That's not really his mission. Whereas Joe Biden should have been politically savvy enough to get those senators in line.
To get this, okay.
Wait, so we just went from Donald Trump is really good at rallying his entire base to now Donald Trump is actually a politician who can't do it, and that's why he didn't. Okay.
So I feel like, guys, you are perfectly exemplifying what the Green Lantern theory of politics is. The central premise of it is that neither of you seem to accept that the Congress can be a check on the president. Neither of you seem to accept that sometimes.
When did Joe Biden try to telling you? We advised that
I was speaking. I was nice to have here. Okay, like you guys seem to think that there's always going to be a way to force the people in Congress to give you the bills that they want, and the reality is literally every single president has been constrained by their Congress. Every single one.
I don't think that. That is not my position. I think that.
That's not your position?
Joe Biden should have tried harder. I think he should have tried harder and used the bully pulpit more to shame the people that were preventing him from delivering on what the American voters voted him into the office to accomplish in the first place. To me, as someone who actually deeply cares about these policies, who cares about the public option that he never actually tried to do once he was in office, who cares about the $15 minimum wage, which he didn't even try to fight for once he was in office. Yeah, it actually pisses me off, and I want to see the president reflect the frustration of his base when it comes to those key issues, and to at least punish the members of the caucus that are they're disloyal and that bears the whole agenda of administration.
It's like not even a great policy to push federally. Like, we don't even technically need a federal minimum wage. If people really want a 15-hour minimum wage, they can just vote for it in other fucking states. Like, you have state minimum wages. If it's like a huge thing that so many different states want, why would you waste so much political capital on 15-an-hour federal minimum wage? Let them fight for it in the states if that's something they care about so much. This is such a dumb talking point that Biden should have burned through everything, not to mention all the legislation that he did pass.
Podcast co-hosts have any opinions on to get a $15 an hour minimum wage in West Virginia?
I think that, I was just going to say, I think that these views are somewhat compatible. Like, I think that Hutch, I think where you're wrong is that, look, at the end of the day, like the Trump project, right, has been a long one at this point, right? It's been almost a decade long. By the time Trump, leaves, I guess we'll see what happens. Fingers crossed. His last term in 2029, that'll have been Donald Trump leading the conservative movement in this country for 12 years, right? A very long time. And we see some of the fruits of that today, right? We see the consolidation of power within the court and the Supreme Court. We see, like Pisco said, the consolidation of power within the caucus, and he's able to essentially just dictate things to the caucus. And how did he accomplish that, right? It wasn't through, my friend John McCain or the analogous thing that Joe Biden did with Joe Manchin. It's like, look, at some points, you have to try and make long-term decisions in the composition of the caucus. You're always going to have moderates and progressives, and those people are always going to disagree. Same thing with the Republican Party to some degree, but at the very least, I think it's probably worth it long-term to instill a kind of like coalition culture within the party and say, look, we ran as a party on $15 an hour minimum wage. I won that election. If you're against me, like, I don't care that you've been a senator from Delaware for the last 20 years. Like, that's what the party believes in. That's what the base believes in, as evident by the election. And you're going to get primaried if you don't support it. And look, to the discredit of some of Donald Trump's candidates that he endorses in the primaries, he's going to lose some of those elections, right? Like he ends up primarying candidates and they end up losing 100%. Otherwise winnable elections. But we see that in the long run, those global macro trends that kind of dictate who wins and loses a lot of these elections end up pulling through. And now Donald Trump has larger majorities in the Senate. I don't know what the House looked like when he took office, but he's able to actually have consolidated that and get a lot of things that he otherwise didn't think he would be able to get done.
Do you think that Joe Manchin, he was going to be threatened by a primary?
Well, Hutch, you're completely disregarding my point. Okay.
No.
They need to bring IRI on the show. It has to be less of the, Econoboy's a smart guy. These macro conversations are so boring. It's not, like, you have to get into the weeds. It's like the fact versus the theory. Okay, like, it's a nice story, but at the end of the day, 50 senators is 50 senators. Holy fuck. That's a difficult composition to work through.
No, I'm not. What do you mean?
No. My point wasn't that you could get Manchin to change his mind. Manchin didn't even run for re-election. He left the Democratic Party. He was independent when he retired from the Senate. Like, I don't know that there's substantially anything that you could have done. I think to the Vanguard's point, there's probably something to be said about at least like the appearance of giving a and like trying.
Which, by the way, was a huge thing that led to Trump's re-election, was the fact that everyone felt like Joe Biden was asleep at the wheel, that he was feckless, that he was too old to.
Yeah, but it's because of dipshits like you that amplify talking points on the right. Like, at what part was, like, it was literally just because of that one debate performance, or because people didn't like the way that he spoke. Like, at what part would he asleep at the wheel? Tons of legislation. We 2x the expectation on the vaccine delivery initially. That American Rescue Plan filled the coffers of every single state in this country. It was insane. There was so much money. People were arguing that they didn't even want to take it all, right? We saw it in the Kerr County. We had all of the fighting for the student loan forgiveness, which I thought was even retarded. Like, this idea that just nothing was going on is just so stupid. We had our big CHIPS Act. Trump talked so long about doing something about China, didn't get all done except for random bullshit talk. And then we have the CHIPS Act that actually got some big plans to start up in the United States. We had the Infrastructure Act that Trump talked all 4 years about, couldn't get shit done. And we actually got this done on a 50-50 Senate. 50-50 Senate. And we got all this shit done. Largest investment in green energy in the history of the United States on a deficit neutral bill. Because all that green energy, I think, came through on that Inflation Reduction Act. That was a deficit neutral bill for the Democrats. Like, strongest economy in the G7, best performance for inflation of all these other countries. Like, we did a really good job. 50-50 and a 50-50 Senate. And they're like, he didn't do anything. He was asleep at the wheel. What? Because he wasn't tweeting every day? Because he wasn't on Truth Social, like spamming with insane shit constantly? We felt like we didn't have a president? Is that what we need?
To whip his own caucus into line when it mattered. That's why he lost. That's why we have Trump.
That doesn't mean anything
for the American people.
What you're saying doesn't mean anything. When you say something like that,
what do you mean it doesn't mean anything?
When you say just use the bully pulpit, you're not suggesting anything.
No. He just said something very specific. Okay, yeah, go for it.
Okay, here's what I was going to say, because this is my point, Hutch, right? Like, I don't want to miss the forest for the trees just because we want to have good fireworks show for the audience, which I'm totally into, by the way. We're all crushing. But the reality is that the point that we're making, and I think Okonoboy, I thought you laid it out extremely well, right? The American people do not believe that the Democratic Party is full of fighters, right? Gavin used the term asleep at the wheel. The reality is that the reason they couldn't get Kamala Harris or Joe Biden across the finish line was because they did not even try to whip.
It's because the media sucks. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. Like, you guys are fucking insane. These are just insane takes. Dude, I hope that in 5 or 10 years, you can have all these people. Let's do like a retrospective on the accomplishments in office of these presidents. And like, compare Trump term 1. You want to talk about an asleep at the wheel president. Trump fucking got nothing done. This guy came in as an actual cult idol. This guy shuffled through so many cabinet members. His midterm was Trump did the whole Roy Moore was in 2018, right? And the whole Steve Bannon shit, all of the people in his election campaign staff or whatever getting arrested. People like Manafort and shit, this guy was around that were getting arrested, convicted of insane crime. Like, there was so much crazy shit going on around this guy. And all he got was a tax bill done. A temporary tax bill. Like, this is the guy who we're saying who like was super fighting for the American people all the time. Give me a break. It's so crazy.
Votes in West Virginia, from West Virginia, right? They didn't even try to say, okay, we're going to go down to Arizona.
Make it feel like they cared about $15 an hour. No one even knew that. You think any of those voters in West Virginia even knew that Biden gave a fuck about $15 an hour? No, because he didn't.
They didn't give a fuck about $15 an hour. They don't care. They're conservatives. It's West Virginia, bro. What the fuck?
That's the problem. He never.
He's like, this guy unironically is like, no, bro. People in West Virginia would love Medicare for all if you just like, but it's manufactured consent.
Even knew that. You think any of those voters in West Virginia even knew that Biden gave a fuck about $15 an hour? No, because he didn't. That's the problem. He never even pretended to care, other than to get a few suckers' votes.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Does everybody agree here that generally speaking in the modern era, What the American voters typically do is, if they give a trifecta to a particular party, they take it away 2 years later. It has basically been, this has been
the party abuses their trust and doesn't do anything. That's why. If Biden had actually done the things that I wanted him to,
I'm just giving you this is what happens with voters, right? So in that time, when a president,
not just as a national,
when a president is inaugurated,
is he not allowed to? This guy, just remember, okay, was literally like, I can't hear when if you're gonna keep cutting me off, I can't hear when you do that. You're gonna keep cutting me off because I can't concentrate. You're gonna keep cutting me off. I can't hear when you do that. What timestamp was this? He actually cried about it. There were tears. What did he say? I can't. 1604.
Do you know who Joe Biden is as a politician? Because if Joe Biden actually been in, if he had actually been in office when he, are you going to finish the point?
Okay, sure, go ahead.
Okay, because I can't focus with that either way. If you actually knew who the politician Joe,
this is what happens with voters, right? So in that time, when a president,
not just as a national,
when a president is inaugurated, they know they're on a ticking clock, and they only have a couple years to pursue as much legislation as they can get done. And to Josiah's point, but you may not like the final version of those bills, but Biden was legislatively the most successful president of the modern era since like LBJ. Now you want to quibble about like $15 an hour. Would it have been better if he spent more time on a useless fight?
You're talking about this like one re-election. You're talking about this like
Virginia senator. Wouldn't it have been him better to just get done what he could get done before he loses Congress? Like, that's the argument. You can't simply say. Vaguely, you can't simply say like, just go to West Virginia, send AOC to West Virginia. Who gives a fuck?
Have you not seen she's been on a Fight the Oligarchy tour and it's been massively successful? Let me talk.
Massively successful? What? Because she has audiences? Does that mean I could run for president because I can go to Texas and fill up a fucking bar? What do you mean massively successful? You're saying that Biden, listen to what he just said. These guys just said it. Listen to this again. They said that Biden wasn't successful because he lost his re-election, but AOC is massively successful because she could bring an audience to a place?
You're talking about this like
Virginia senator? Wouldn't it have been him better to just get done what he could get done before he loses Congress? Like, that's the argument. You can't simply say... Vaguely, you can't simply say like, just go to West Virginia, send AOC to West Virginia. Who gives a fuck?
Have you not seen she's been on a Fight the Oligarchy tour and it's been massively successful? Let me talk.
Massively, yeah. Did we beat the oligarchy?
For 1 second about this, guys. I was just in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma doing a segment for the Vanguard where I went to one of the Fight the Oligarchy tours, right? You guys ever been to Tulsa, Oklahoma?
Wait, this isn't the guy that I talked to, right? I talked to a different guy, right? From the Vanguard?
Never.
No.
Okay, it is not exactly liberal country, okay? It's not the kind of place where they're tuning into podcasts that are woke, okay? Guess what that room was filled with? It was filled with people who wanted to see socialism. They loved AOC, and they were union guys that were fixing airplanes. They were...
Hold on, I'm so curious. Tulsa is in what district? Because this is like a big city for Oklahoma standards, right? Oh fuck, it's not blue at all. Damn, that was a hell of fucking red. Tulsa electoral district. Wait, this isn't what I'm looking for? Okay, no, fuck me. It's 41.3 to 56. Yeah, even that's pretty red. I thought that there was 16, 20, 24. Wait, how many states were completely red? Was it just this one? Remember that one, the meme picture of the like Massachusetts versus Oklahoma for the completely red state versus the completely blue state? That was a yikers. That was a yikes one.
They were farmers, they were teachers, there were tons of indigenous folks that showed up. Oklahoma has a huge indigenous population that's underrepresented. If you were to ask a pollster like Ezra Klein, he would tell you not to waste your time in Oklahoma. But you know what Bernie Sanders said to those people? He said, I do not want to be a part of a government that sees red and blue states. I want to be a part of a government that leads, that delivers for the American people. When I went to the U.S. Senate, I said I was going to stand up for the United States of America. That's what I'm here to do today. And people were losing it, man. They couldn't believe that somebody actually showed up for them. You're telling me that if you put on national television, Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Kamala Harris, Beto O'Rourke, take your pick, famous people, Gavin Newsom from the party, they all show up to West Virginia, whoever it is that you can get. I'm not saying all these people would agree, but a lot of them would agree because everybody loves to have their picture taken with the president, and they would have shown up, and it would have been a huge event, and it would have shown the American people that Joe Biden was going to fight for them. Sometimes optics matter. That would have been a time that optics matter. I'm not saying it would have worked. I'm saying the American people would have been like, yeah, Joe, thank you for showing up for us, which you've never done over the time you're president.
You need Manchin. It's in a 50-50 Senate. You need Manchin's vote for literally every single piece of legislation that you want to get done. And you're...
Can we get these guys to be so unhinged that they're like, well, maybe he could start primarying Republicans. Maybe he could bully pulpit Republicans.
Saying that the very first thing he should have done is gone to civil war with Joe Manchin and threatened the primary because we didn't get one particular provision.
I mean, is that not what Trump does with the defectors in his caucus? Like, is that not? Is that
do we
not
really want to emulate? Like, do you?
No, Hutch you shouldn't have even gone there. You should just say Trump doesn't have a 50-50 Senate.
Want a Republican to a Democratic
win. Well, wait a minute. Personally, I think that elides the point. Well, wait a minute. I think you got to address this, and it goes all the way back to. I've been spending the last 30 minutes trying to look for what Pisco had to say about Mike Johnson's first vote. And I can't find anything. That motherfucker. There's nothing on it. Fuck you, Pisco. But listen. I think it elides the point that they're making, which is it doesn't matter if you want people to emulate Trump or not. They're making the case that it is possible for presidents to bully their parties into line.
Yes, it's called whipping.
I want you to deal. So Hutch, I do want you to deal with the Trump example. Either refute it or say yes, but that's Trump.
No, you can do it. You can bully people. But it has to be realistic. Like, this is so weird. Like, you can bully people to do things, but you have to have power. You have to have leverage to do it. Like if you had like a 54-46 Senate or 53, 3-vote lead in the Senate, you can start looking at people and be like, all right, well, which one of you disloyal motherfuckers, right? Especially depending on the districts they hold in the states. But this is a factual conversation that you have to have, not an emotional, conceptual conversation of like who can, fire off the most tweets or whatever.
Virginia. It's West Virginia. So I can I step in? I want to say
no. Hang on. Let's let Hutch respond.
Why are you flip-flopping when you were agreeing with me when we had the same conversation with Kyle in person?
Oh, bro.
You're flip-flopping because you're on the podcast.
Yo,
man, I'm about to roundhouse kick Pisco. He already has the beard off. I'm gonna take the mustache off the next time I see him. And then you and I, Hutch, listen, you're so tall. I'm gonna kick the shit out of your ankles. Listen to me real quick.
See, Hutch, there's a W right there. I'm 5'7". So whenever if I've ever hurt your feelings, you just fall asleep at night knowing that
I know, man. Us short people. I know he's like 6'4". I know. I agree.
Let me stop you. Okay, you go to war with Joe Manchin. You say I'm gonna primary you. Block you. Hold on, wait. Hold on. I'm gonna fuck your mom and I'm gonna primary you and we're gonna replace you. Okay. And he says, you know what?
You don't even know where her urn is.
I'm not pulling 100%.
And then he says, you know what? I don't like this at all. I'm an independent. You guys don't get the majority. That's that. What do you do?
Hard to bully Manchin.
Okay.
Hard to I want to agree with
you.
Would you just let me get through the fucking thing? Just shut up, and let me get let me get through the sentence.
Pisco wants to talk.
Shut up for a second. I agree with you that Joe Manchin was not bullyable. I want you to address the notion they brought up Trump. And I can't speak for Pisco.
Are you stupid? So the response, Manchin is not bullyable, is a response to your question is, why don't you bully? Okay,
that wasn't my fucking question.
Why don't you bully? It
literally was.
You're like,
we can go back and play the tape where I said your point aligns theirs. I said they are saying that a president can theoretically bully a party. I want you to address
what
that.
my position is, just because I think you guys are splitting hairs here, right? Because I think that it's fair to address what Hutch is saying, which is the fact that Joe Manchin might say, "You then I eat a bag of dicks," and go
like. You don't want to copy Trump's electoral strategy from term one. Trump was not a legislatively successful president. Even when he had majorities, he didn't really accomplish that much. So I don't know why you even think it's a good model. Like Trump, they're talking about, oh, well, Trump bullies people. Yeah, when he's got big majorities in both houses of Congress, but it's not very impressive. Like you want to copy these guys you want to copy the Republicans who couldn't hold on to their House majority seat for the first time in U.S. history? They couldn't maintain their House majority speaker position? Like, come on.
But here's the thing. The American people are tired of getting crumbs, right? They already expect you to kind of be like, okay, the Republicans beat us, blah, blah, blah. You have to find a way to win. So you get on... Say you get on your infrastructure bill, right? You get Joe Manchin doesn't vote for it. Do you not see what Donald Trump has proven that you can do without Congress? You say, guys, give me 2 more years. Okay, or however long Joe Manchin had left.
Okay, well, that's a much different statement. If you want somebody to be like an authoritarian, then sure, but...
But I think the ultimate problem is not so much Biden's treatment of Joe Manchin, but it's the fact that he didn't even seem like he cared about the policy in the first place. We're talking about these policies that he's supposed to be fighting for, but no one even knows he's supporting.
It's not these policies that he's supposed to be fighting for. It's your pet projects because you're a rich white dude who doesn't give a fuck about anything else in this country. 15 hours, 15 hours, 15. That's all you think about. That's all you know about. Probably because you heard it fall out Bernie Sanders' mouth, and that's it. You don't care about policies or anything. You just care about 15 hours, and maybe student loan forgiveness, but you don't bring that one up because Biden did fight a lot on that one. Like, that's it.
Like I said, he'd have a lot better chance of getting reelected and of being popular if people felt like he gave about this, if they felt like it was actually something on his agenda, not something that could conveniently hit the cutting room floor as soon as he runs into any sort of obstruction.
Like if Trump was so good about making people feel like he cared and Trump did all these things so well, why did he lose his election? Trump lost in 2021. Why do people always forget that? You know that Trump didn't win that election, right? So why would you look to Trump, who had 4 years and then lost, as the template for what we should be copying? This doesn't make any sense.
From his own party. And that's exactly how it felt. It felt like Joe Biden was more than happy to use that as an excuse to say, oh, sorry, guys, what do you want me to do? The thing I promised to do is now on the cutting room floor because of these things that I knew would be an issue before I promised it. So it's like, why the f do you even promise it? Just to lie to everyone and get their hopes up? You knew this would be a problem.
If you didn't run on it, you'd be like, why aren't you running on it?
No, I'd rather he be honest. I genuinely would rather he be honest. I would. And I voted for politicians who aren't running on it. I voted for Kamala Harris, even though she was running on a bunch of shit that I hated, including going around talking about how all the number 1 CEOs and corporation leaders in the company signed off on all of her stupid crypto policies and all of her AI bullshit. Like, at least she was honest about it. I don't actually think that it's a good idea, though, to run for something or, win.
Did this person vote for Kamala? Or is he in a state? Is he live in California? He's like, oh, my vote doesn't matter anyway. I'm curious.
A primary based on these ideas, including a public option and a $15 an hour minimum wage, things that would substantially uplift America.
Oh, and he brought it up. At least he said public options and Medicare for all. You think that that's what Biden needed to do, was push for a public option and 15 an hour minimum wage? So what, he could have done nothing? He could have gotten nothing done?
Americans who desperately need it and then immediately say, sorry, oops, some bullshit happened and now I have to throw you under the bus and renege on this promise.
You don't seem to fully appreciate the role of the Congress. Period. End of story.
No, like I just said, though, he didn't even try to make, like with various politicians that understand.
True. Like, that's it. Hutch is right. Like, this is an unserious conversation. This is for this should be like a kindergartner chat. but whatever. That's some school host. This is a deeply unserious conversation right now.
And this issue, they know that, and they build a pressure campaign to make it so that it's political suicide for you to oppose.
And then you just say like vague bullshit like this. Build a pressure campaign. Do the bully pulpit pressure. Let's talk. Let's talk numbers. Let's talk people. Let's talk states. We already said you can't bully Manchin. So who else? Like, if Manchin says no, what are you going to do? You're going to go to bully a Republican, or what is the pressure campaign? Pressure against who?
Understand this issue. They know that, and they build a pressure campaign to make it so that it's political suicide for you to oppose his policy. Joe Biden didn't do that with the right policies. He did it with the wrong ones and bungled the ones that he was right about, like the Afghanistan war.
It wasn't even just Manchin. Like Cinema was. Pisco, I know you wanted to jump in. But.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm going to be a bridge builder here for sure, 100%, because I'm going to yell in kind of both directions. On the one hand, you can't bully Manchin, but I think that there's a kind of lesson from the Inflation Reduction Act. Everyone said that the environmental policy that Biden was trying to push was dead in the water. They said it for months and months and months and months. The Inflation Reduction Act was a surprise for a lot of people, and I think give Biden some credit. I think that that's an incredible package in terms of now it's being diluted and somewhat destroyed by
But he
Trump
lost the following election, Pisco. That's the problem.
No, I
So did Trump.
agree to that. I think that's Biden's greatest failure is, and this
The
is
presidency has to be an 8-year project in the year 2025, is my view. So I think that if you fail the first time with Joe Manchin, you have to dedicate your entire presidency to him and replacing the seat.
100%.
You just said you couldn't bully Manchin.
Whoa. So 100% on the notion. I don't know why you're so triggered, Hutch. So first of all, I was defending that you can't bully Manchin, but
Why Hutch is not triggered? They just said something retarded. Why are people okay having? Oh man, what's the name for this fallacy? It's kind of like a gish gallop. People will say something wrong, you'll correct it, and then you'll move on to the argument, and they'll just bring up the wrong thing again. And it's like, I thought we addressed this. Hello? And they're like, oh yeah, okay. And then you go to the guy, and then they bring up like the wrong thing again, and it's like, no, why do you keep bringing this up?
On the specific notion that the presidency is an 8-year project, that is 100% true. I totally agree with that. That's what I said 100% agree with. Hutch, do you have a problem with me saying I agree with that point?
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. So just to be clear, I totally agree. You can't really bully Manchin. You have to go
primary him. That's why it's an 8-year project.
But I will say the following: to pretend that Joe Biden, and this is all coming out from
Wait, so do we primary Manchin or not? The guy who's not running again, that we all agreed that you can't primary. I'm sorry, I keep getting mixed up.
You have a problem with me saying I agree with that point?
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. So just to be clear, I totally agree. You can't really bully Manchin. You have to go
primary him. That's why it's an 8-year project.
But I will say the following: to pretend that Joe Biden, and this is all coming out from reporting, was engaged as he should have been on domestic fronts, is now proving more and more to be untrue. It appears that it appears that he outsourced domestic policy to Ron Klain. He had minimal meetings with his cabinet.
He didn't even do cabinet meetings. Yeah, I was about to say that.
And so it's a systemic problem of Biden in terms of his failures as a communicator and his failure of engagement on the domestic front. And that is unfortunately a legacy that I do think has contributed to the rise of Trump. That's not to say, and I don't want to denigrate the good domestic agenda that was done. I think the Vanguard, I think, is what Biden did. He got tangible wins for the American people domestically in a way that other presidents didn't. I didn't hear you really to say that that's not true. I think you said it was like watered down. I think it's watered down because he was trying to build bridges where he could, but he did pass through some historic legislation. I think you guys would acknowledge that.
Oh, but 100% he did. My problem is that he embraced bipartisanship in a way that was totally detrimental in a time when he should have been fighting. I feel like what
he embraced it when he had to. It was a divided government.
He embraced bipartisanship. What a fucking retard. With a 50-50 Senate, with 2 wild cards for the Democrats. Like,
he was doing bipartisan stuff. He had to do bipartisan stuff.
And guess what? The people said, we don't want you anymore. We want a guy that's going to go play hardball.
To be fair, I do think it was Joe Biden's age made it basically he was unreelectable. Like, I do feel he was so old. He was so in cognitive decline that like that ultimately had more to do with the way people voted for him than like the Joe Manchin thing.
Oh, so now this guy just completely switched up to a different argument. So now none of the other stuff mattered. And he said, actually, I think it was just because he's old, and the Manchin stuff didn't actually matter at all. So now we just completely switched to a whole different pillar.
To be fair, I do think it was Joe Biden's age made it basically he was unreelectable. Like, I do feel he was so old. He was so in cognitive decline that like that ultimately had more to do with the way people voted for him than like the Joe Manchin thing, to be totally fair to Joe Biden. And I also think that if Joe Biden had been a younger version of himself, he would have been able to better communicate the wins that he did secure, because that was another huge thing. The communications department in the last administration was just pathetic. They didn't brag about anything that they accomplished. Most people didn't even know what they accomplished, even though, as you mentioned a couple times accurately, they accomplished more than previous administrations had.
I fully agree with so like what's going on right now with the Democratic Party is they are just fully in terms of acclimating to this new paradigm of media. They don't understand the climate whatsoever. And so Biden did go out there and like visit like small cities in Michigan and Pennsylvania to celebrate, the impact of the infrastructure deal. But who the fuck was there? It was like C-SPAN with like 17.
Yes, thank you. The problem, I used to say this, is not true. The problem is not Biden taking credit for his wins or the Democratic Party taking credit for the wins. It's the fact that no one in the media gave a fuck. They never gave a fuck. They were always covering random fucking shit, whatever Trump was tweeting about that day or whatever the fuck else. Nobody gave a fuck. Or the American public just doesn't give a fuck. You need to make them give a fuck.
Cities in Michigan and Pennsylvania to celebrate, the impact of the infrastructure deal. But who the fuck was there? It was like C-SPAN with like 17 viewers. Nobody was tweeting about it.
So it's media, and that's half the job now.
Yes, exactly.
He sucked at media? Biden isn't media. Biden is the president of the United States. He's not a media person. He can give interviews, but nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah, I agree.
He's just, like Hutch is literally pointing out that he did they were doing shows or demonstrations or whatever the fuck else. Not demonstrations, rallies or whatever. Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody cares. Like, do we want the media president? Is that what we need? Do we need somebody like Trump who wants to give 3 live streams a day? This guy's going fucking This guy's going live from the Oval Office 6 hours a day.
I agree with all of this. I agree with all of this.
Right. And I think you agree with this part. And so that's why I'm glad, because I think that that's part of what's being spoken about from the Vanguard is the communication part is 50% of the, more than 50% of the job now, both internal communications, that is to your other stakeholders within the government, other branches of government, that's to Joe Manchin. And he was able to negotiate, but it was delayed, right? The Inflation Reduction Act, and also externally, right? And getting public support for ideas, getting pressure, right? MAGA is able to, or Trump at times, I think less so now, is able to leverage this like momentum, right? And you often feel it, right? Like you get this report, and a lot of it's theater for sure. But
even before Trump. Even before Trump, remember the rhino label? Like Republicans have always been better at shaming their defectors, whereas Democrats, like you never saw Joe Biden taunting Joe Manchin and saying, this guy, he's a dino, he's a traitor, he's helping Donald Trump, he's a secret Republican, he's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
So now we're back to the Manchin point. We all just agreed that he's not even running for re-election. Why do we keep bringing Manchin up? You can't do anything to him.
That's what he should have said, not just because it's good politics, but because it's true. Joe Manchin is a piece of shit.
So now we get no legislation. So now Manchin defects on every vote in the Senate. And what do we get for that again?
Wait, hold on. You have not reconciled the obvious problem with this. Let's say he does that. Let's say you're a dino. I'm a primary. I'm a mom, and he says, "I don't like your posture. You have no leverage over me. I'm going to be independent." And you
imprison him.
No, I'm serious. Like, how do you reconcile with that?
100%. Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. That's why
that fair. You can't say that's a fair point. That just completely contradicted every single thing you just said. You can't yes and that. It completely contradicted everything that was just said here.
Pisco and I shared the moment where we agreed that, hey, this is an 8-year project, right? When you're battling a Congress that is 100% against the American people, like Joe Manchin, like Kristen Sinema, right? You can't accomplish the goals. The American people just voted, and we're operating under the time Joe Biden's just getting into office, right? Okay, they voted for him to be an antidote to Donald Trump. They're scared because of COVID. They want somebody who's competent. They want, vaccine rollout that's sufficient, right? They want all of these things. That's what he's been voted on. So you have to say, this man is standing in the way of what I want to accomplish. If you want a higher minimum wage, we need to know that this man is standing in the way of it. You make him a pariah. You make his name mud in Washington. In the meantime, you do not pass that piece of pivotal legislation. You go to town with every single executive order that comes across your desk. You make that man's life hell, and you also go to work uplifting the American people. You declare a state of emergency. You talk about how healthcare is a human right. You talk about how we're going to do every single thing you can. We're going to make sure that nobody pays a cent of student loans as long as I'm president, right? We're going to make sure that we fight it in the court and not a dollar is collected, and we fight all the insurance or the interest rates all the way. We go after everything that we could do with worker protection to make sure that it's harder to exploit your workforce. Let's make sure that we're supplementing every single court that we can along the way to make sure that a company like Uber doesn't get to contract their drivers as a 1099 employee that has to pay a bunch of taxes at the end of the year and gets totally wrapped. Let's make sure that we're uplifting those people at every step of the way. I think these are ideas that we would all agree are going to be beneficial and tangible to the American people. And then over your 8-year presidency, you do start to accomplish the goals that you need the power of Congress to do, right? Because nobody can just, overrule Congress, although Donald Trump is giving it a run for his money right now, and he even has control of Congress, right? So you say, we're going to do every single thing that we can from the power of the desk. We're going to fight everything in the court, and we're going to make your life as good as we can while we get rid of Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema, and bring back the party of the people.
Okay, so let's game this out. So it's ARP negotiations. It's the first 2 months of the presidency. This is his first.
Nope, not fair. Nope, Hutch is a Are we about to talk specifics? No, cringe. Can we just talk about our cool, broad, concepts and theories? And I think these are way more fun. Hutch is going to be cringe and talk about specifics now. He wants to get in the weeds.
And bring back the party of the people.
Okay, so let's game this out. So it's ARP negotiations. It's the first 2 months of the presidency. This is his first bill that he wants to get passed. He does exactly what you're saying right now. He goes to war with Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin defects. He loses control of Congress. Now,
why would you lose control of Congress? You're just stacking the deck in your favor.
No, hold on. I just told you that there would be a risk that Joe Manchin would defect and say, "I don't like the way you're treating me. I'm going to defect." There was absolutely a risk of him doing that, by the way.
We can play this counterfactual game all day.
Are you acknowledging or not that there was a risk for him to defect in that way if Trump?
Yes, but you're telling me that after that defection, that Joe Biden loses Congress. I disagree with that. That's what I'm disputing.
If you give that Senate gavel, do they have a gavel in the Senate? If you give that gavel to Mitch McConnell, now not only do you not get the IRA, which did a lot of really good shit, and not just for environment, but also for
you're just saying, imagine all these bad things happen. I could say, imagine all these good things happen because I did all these executive orders.
Do you not just? Okay, hang on. Podcast. I guess. Hold on. I need to not feel crazy for a second. Podcast bros. Do you think it was possible that if Biden would have done what they're suggesting that he should have done, that Manchin could have switched parties?
He didn't have the talent. Biden, it was too old. He couldn't do it.
Oh my God. What were you gonna do?
So this whole thing is, I agree with you, Hutch, in the sense that he couldn't do it. He did not have the capacity to do it. And Manchin, although I don't know that Manchin would be the type to just never vote on judicial nominees anymore because you're talking some shit. And I think that there are ways he could have done it. But fundamentally, I agree.
We're not talking about judicial nominees. We're talking about legislation.
It's not possible. Biden could not have done it. He did not have it in him. It's not in his character to do the kind of play that the Vanguard are talking about.
It was 40-year-old Biden in his prime. Could he have forced a $15 an hour minimum wage on Manchin?
No, Hutch, obviously, to your point, Hutch, it's clear that what you're saying is...
And Pisco dodges like a snake. Listen, Hutch, oh, that was such a good question from Hutch, right? Now rather than, what should Biden have done? Now we're like, well, Biden could have never done it. And then just, okay, what if he was 40 years old? You think he could have gotten Manchin to the 15-hour minimum wage? And then he takes a drink and he lets someone else take over. He should have forced an answer from that question.
It's true that it was a possibility that it would happen. I mean, I think that what's fair, I guess, to say, obviously, to your point, Hutch, it's clear that what you're saying is true that it was a possibility that it would happen. I mean, I think that...
What are these talking points?
What's fair, I guess, to say at least is that literally did happen with both Manchin and Sinema. They both turned independent eventually.
Why are you doing this?
But they supported the legislation. Why didn't they? Or did Manchin and Sinema defect from key legislation that they got enough Republican votes on for the infrastructure bill, for the Inflation Reduction Act, for the CHIPS Act, and for the and for ARPA, the American Reinvestment Plan or whatever? Were those passed without Manchin and Sinema? Somebody look it up.
Is it like wildly disingenuous? He switched parties.
Why is that disingenuous?
He switched parties after they lost control of Congress when it didn't matter, bro. That's
already
Oh, nice. Hutch knows the answer.
Hutch, but I think what you've never addressed is this idea that, I mean, I've already conceded
What Hutch has never addressed? Holy shit. I would lose it on this show, dude.
like personally, I don't know if the Vanguard boys would agree with me, but like I've already conceded that, look, you might have a world where you do what the Vanguard guys are saying, and all of a sudden Manchin goes independent, 2 years earlier, and maybe you don't get the IRA passed, and you have to deal with like the current subsidies instead of the expanded ones or whatever. Like that's a risk that you have. And similarly, and I compared to the Trump project that he loses a lot of elections that he would maybe otherwise be able to win because he endorses radicals in primaries and they end up winning the primaries. But again, that long-term compositional change of the Republican Party seems to have netted them out policy wins when they're actually able to control the government, right? And I think that Democrats,
but they don't have policy wins explicitly. Trump just ramrods through as many executive orders as he can, and that's it. Where's our border bill? Where's anything besides the fucking tax bill? Where is the full repeal of Obamacare? It never came. It's not coming. What are the big policy wins from Donald Trump?
I think the Democrats should engage in a similar project for the long term.
For the long term? Remember, Donald Trump lost his election. He lost the second election. So he wasn't even a two-term president sequentially. Number one. Number two, long term. What is the Republican Party going to look like in 2028 when Trump is gone? Because every Republican behind closed doors is petrified of that right now. And I think they're probably terrified of what the midterms are going to look like, because every midterm has been pretty disappointing that Trump is backed as well. Like, Trump is not the go-to guy for politics. I don't know where they get this delusion from.
Term health of, at this point, the country.
So you would give up 200 plus judicial appointments in every piece of legislation that he passed just for this vague notion of like, we're going to be a party of fighters now?
But see, Hutch is asking like a specific question, because these are the things that actually got passed. You want to put all these things at risk for some vague thing, and then they always like respond like, well, who knows what would have happened? Who knows? Wait. Maybe he'll have a more substantive answer.
But Hutch, I think that the problem is that I really believe in the Democratic Party platform, right? Like, I think it's not just like, oh, it'd be nice to have, these are marginal improvements. Like, we're talking about,
it's just all they're having different conversations here.
You said you take seriously the idea that the threats to democracy, and this is such a big deal. And I think that for the long-term health of the country, and also just like the people in the country, to the Vanguard boys' point, the idea of like having a universal healthcare system, having like a high wage floor.
Oh my God, that's what the fight should have been over. Was fucking single payer and 15 an hour minimum wage. Really?
These kind of like expansive welfare policies and things like that. Like our policies are so bad. I feel like I am answering it, right? So
He's not. Yeah. No, that's why I said they're having two different conversations.
Are you saying that would be an acceptable sacrifice? No 200 plus judges and all that legislation? None of that. Are you saying cutting all of that would be worth it to...
Hutch, it's obviously... Hutch, it's a question of expected value and the risks you're willing to take. So I don't like the idea of the scenario that you're painting. If there's a 100% scenario that what you're saying happens, you might think a little bit differently about it, but there's obviously not a 100% chance, right? There's every chance in the world that you engage in this project and maybe the idyllic version of what the Vanguard is talking about would happen. Or
what, some Republicans switch parties?
Or at the very least, something settles out in the middle or something. Like, you never really know how these things are going to go. But I was just going to say, last sentence, that I think establishing a basic standard within the Democratic Party that, hey, I don't care if you don't like this policy. We have to do these things, not only because, it's the platform that we ran on and maybe there's some long-term gains to that, but also it's just really good for the American people, Hutch. And like, it's worth like saying, hey, moderate asshole, you, like, we have to actually get this done because it's good.
Like this is the progressive like mind rot, is everybody likes this, trust us. Even if all the politicians and lawmakers are complaining, even if a lot of the constituents might vote differently, trust me, like, this is good for the American people. They're just too stupid to realize it. They don't know it, but trust me, they'll love this, okay? Trust me.
You don't need to do the thing where you're like, I'm the one that actually cares about these policies. Meanwhile, you would pursue a strategy that would result in no judicial appointments and no pieces of legislation.
I don't know that for sure, Hutch. It's the risk that you're willing to take, right?
Okay, fine, put the risk aside. What is the possible benefit? Are you going to move Joe Manchin on this, yes or no?
He moved on the IRA.
I don't...
Hold on. Are you going to move him on $15 an hour?
No, Hutch, to answer your question, to answer your question as directly as I can, it is irrelevant to my point. I don't think so.
Wait, he moved on the IRA because Biden threatened to primary him? Well, maybe he just supported the IRA. What was Manchin's statements on the IRA? I know there was negotiating, I think, done between him and Biden. I think that was specifically written about. I feel like I read stories, but it wasn't because Biden threatened to primary him.
Hutch, to answer your question, to answer your question as directly as I can, it is irrelevant to my point. I don't think so. Ultimately, that you're able to get.
It's irrelevant. It is irrelevant. True. See, he's honest. That's what I'm saying. These are two different conversations.
To answer your question as directly as I can, it is irrelevant to my point. I don't think so. Ultimately, that you're able to get
benefit analysis. What is the possible benefit, right?
It's all ended with Donald Trump being our president. How can you act like the risk benefit analysis worked out in our favor? Like, that's the whole problem right here. Like, you're
What a retrospective. Nice. Oh, well, we can just see the future.
talking about the weeds here. We got the fascists in power as a result of this because the American people didn't believe that Democrats could fight anything, including a fascist. And so now we've got people getting black bagged off of the street. Now we don't have a Department of Education. Now 12 million people are losing their Medicaid. Now the hospital I was born in can no longer deliver babies in the east side of Kansas City, Missouri, because they thought those black mothers that largely make it up nowadays because of gentrification and the fact that all of these people have been shoved to the east poor side of Kansas City aren't worth it to have their own NICU or any kind of delivery services. These are the real life consequences of Donald Trump. And because the Democrats thought they could people and lie to them about, oh, we're actually fighting for $15 in minimum wage, or oh, we're actually going to cancel your student loans, when they never had an intention of doing it.
They never had an intention of doing it? Well, anybody on this podcast who knows how many times, how many different executive orders and different routes did Biden go through on this stupid student loan? Also, fuck all of you and fuck your student loans. Pay them, you lazy fucks. Is anybody else on this show besides Hutch going to call them out? That's just a fucking lie, right? How stupid.
Rolled over immediately, so they lost in hand.
They never had the intention of doing student loans?
Thank you, Hutch.
No.
Anybody else going to back him up on this point? Hello?
They did not.
Well, why did he do it?
Did it work out? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Did it work out? You didn't ask if it worked out. You asked me the intention to do anything about it. Didn't he try? There were like 3 different pathways that he tried to cancel student loan debt on. He got challenged to the courts. People in Congress attacked him for it. Like,
listen to yourself.
What do you
People
mean
hate
did it
it.
work out?
Oh, the Republicans struck it down. That's what the Democrats always
No,
say.
the court struck it down, bro. What do you mean?
Probably got to pack the court.
Well, I think the Vanguard walked into a bad one because obviously student loans was one where Biden seemed to actually he did actually try to cancel student loan debt.
thank you.
Broadly, but that's I think that
Did he try it once by executive order?
he tried to
He's
cancel.
probably one of the things I mean, I think the Biden deserves all the credit in the world for the student loan stuff.
There we
I think
go.
there's one additional thing
Thank
he could
you.
have tried, but I really think he went through all the steps to try to get that passed.
What's the one additional thing you think he could
One
have
additional, I think he should have shredded up all the loan documents for every individual in the country after they lost the election.
What?
And run that shit.
And just as a core executive power, just like shred all of the loan documents and officially renunciate all the loans. Now that might have had some problems, but if you make it impracticable for anybody to prove that those loans exist, I think that's the one additional thing he could have done. But that's not in Biden's.
I mean, like the debt is still there. You would have to account for it. That's okay. Well, I guess.
Character to do that. There could have been other ways, like other documentation, but it would have been such a mess. But I do think he should have done it.
And
That's
imagine the political capital Republic.
I like how this guy. Fuck you, Krobmeister. Wait, ban that guy. Okay, I was going to say this first. Fuck you. Because it was the guy who said that Biden was like deeply immoral and unethical for pardoning his son in advance because he knew that Trump was going to go after him. But he's saying that it would have been moral and ethical to shred all of the documents accounting for all of the student loans? Wait, what?
Republicans would have to expand.
I just can't accept the
We're
fact that Donald
going
Trump
back
is
trying to take this shit together.
and that we cannot figure out a way. Like, how can you be the president that pen strokes away all of the billions and billions of dollars in PPP loans, right? How can you?
I'm telling you that what I would do is
That pen strokes away all the PPP. That was the whole point of the PPP loans, was that if you use them for wages, they would be forgiven. That was the point. That was the program.
as president, if I were in Biden's shoes, is after all that was struck down, I would order the Department of Education to shred all communications and documents related to those student loans. Now, that ultimately that might not have been effective because you could have had whistleblowers people being like, we can't do this. We have to save all the documentation. But that is what I would have done because I do think that it is important, and I think that after we have like the core, executive rulings from the immunity decision, all that stuff, I think he should have done it for sure. But in terms of that, you can't go after Biden on the student loan stuff. He did really try that, and the courts really did come over on that. And then after the court struck it down, he went with other, the SAVE plan, other methods to targeted relief, and they forgave like billions and billions of dollars of relief. It was a very good thing they did. And it's one of those things that they did not communicate well. They did not communicate well. That was a tangible win for the American people.
Yeah, I was under the impression. Please go. And could you? And you can elucidate this because my impression was that within the power of the Higher Education Act, and I have a tweet about this from the past. I would be curious as a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, but the Higher Education Act, couldn't he potentially? It says right here that there was no discussion of the actions that he could have taken for what's called the HEROES Act, and it lies within the power of the Higher Education Act of 1965, which he made no effort to pursue as a final effort after his initial
They tried both, and it was in the middle of the rulemaking situation. It took longer because there's additional procedures that they had to run, and they'd have a notice and comment timeline, and so they did end up using that authority that you're invoking. And the one additional thing he could have tried is instead of capping at 10,000, 20,000, he could have gotten rid of it all. They had a stronger argument on that because the legal provision there was waive or modify, and the court basically said, well, they can do, you can waive all of it or you can modify a little bit, and they interpreted modify to be like a much more minor. But that would have been struck down anyway, and I think the court was signaling it, that they were going to invoke what's known as the major questions doctrine. They didn't actually invoke the major questions doctrine in that case, but they basically signaled that if Biden tried to waive all the student loans, even though that was more cabined within the terms of the statute, that the Supreme Court was going to strike it down.
Yeah, it's really important to remember that anything that President Biden attempted to do via executive order or that could have been done congressionally via statute is still subject to judicial review, which means, to Pisco's point, the conservative supermajority on the court, they could have invented whatever reason they want to grant cert to the case.
Here lies the fundamental problem with why Democrats always lose, because everything you just said might be true, but I don't care about it, right? Because
Thank you. Can we just open with that next time instead of wasting, so that I said this at the beginning, this is an unserious conversation. And there should just be two different, you should have like a separate show no, I mean, it's their show, they do the one, but like these are unserious people, okay? Thank you. You don't care about anything relating to the process or government or whatever else, okay? We understand that. But we should have skipped, why do we waste 40 minutes talking about this bullshit then, if you don't actually give a fuck about the process of governance at all?
case.
Here lies the fundamental problem with why Democrats always lose, because everything you just said might be true, but I don't care about it, right? Because I just watched them forgive billions of dollars for rich assholes that bought votes with that money, and that's how the American people.
That's what the PP loans were for. Like, you've gotten brainwashed by media, and you're blaming Joe Biden for it. Like,
people feel. You know what I'm saying?
No, I totally say that. We totally agree. But that's also another reason why I think for a lot of us here, court reform is so central to the case, and making it a case to the American people is so essential, because anything that you want done or we want done is going to have to be reviewed by the Supreme Court, and they're inclined to strike it down for precisely that reason. You know, Trump will get away with his tax cuts for the rich and for, you know, all sorts of other egregious things because he has a sympathetic supermajority on the Supreme Court, and they're the final boss of democracy. Trump's the immediate problem, but the court represents an equally dangerous problem. It's just kind of looming in the background. You got to deal with both.
I want to say one other thing. Like, I am not just trying to constantly split the baby here. I do agree ultimately with Hutch in terms of the empirics of the makeup in the Congress and the fact that the base of the Democrats, they're not like the MAGA base. They don't exert that kind of control and power. And so I do think that Biden has to approach it a different way. Where I agree strongly with the vanguard is the following. Biden's presidency is a failure. It is a failure because the one most important thing that he promised, which is to restore the soul of this country and to stop Trump, he failed on. And that, not exclusively, there were other challenges that are outside of his control, you know, the resurgence of COVID, inflation, that kind of stuff, which, you know, I don't blame on him. But the failure of communication and the lack of engagement due to his frailty, and then the hubris, the arrogant decision that if you really, you know, I know people are clowning on Jake Tapper and stuff, and for good reason, but if you read the decision-making process that wasn't ever there when they decided to run for re-election, that this is how they were running the administration. And you can't tell me that that was optimal in terms of the domestic policy front and that everything was running on four cylinders when you're not meeting with your cabinet. And so do I believe that Biden was doing everything in his power and everything within his, you know, communication ability while he was president on the domestic front? No, I don't believe that. And I think that there are probably other things he could have done. And I think that you don't need to go on the all-out, like, call Manchin a pig fucker. Where there are other approaches that I think he would have taken, Hutch. And I think what you have to grant Hutch, even though I agree with you that you couldn't push Manchin move heaven and earth, and you ultimately probably wouldn't get $50 minimum wage, there was not even an attempt to signal. You have to grant that, like, they did not even like protest a little bit on that. And that has to, like, be something you acknowledge.
I think in the case of Manchin, there was one time, because people were complaining about the fact that he wasn't like picking this fight. And I think he was asked a question at a press conference, and he said some like mild criticism of Joe Manchin, and Joe Manchin turned around and wrote a fucking op-ed for the Wall Street Journal that said he wasn't budging you. So like, my point is that like,
what would you do? Would you let him dog walk you like that?
Hutch is absolutely correct. These guys just don't think that Congress is real. They have no respect for the Congress. Hutch is 100% right. Like, people say, would you let him dog walk you? He owns you, little bro. He owns you. That is your final vote in the Senate. He kind of gets whatever the fuck he wants. It's kind of how it works. Yes. Like, what are you going to do?
What is... You just told me
yeah, would you be Manchin's bitch, just like Biden?
No, I agree with you that like you can't.
You have this precious little time and this precious little political capital to spend. It's just, these are the historical trends. George W. Bush after 9/11, that he was the only guy to buck this trend in the post-war era. Every single other time,
Biden bucked the trend. Biden bucked the trend in historic fashion in 2022.
Yeah, I'm not talking about beating incumbents. I'm talking about when you give a trifecta to a government or to a political party, the American voters, you only get 2 years. It's just way easier to be on offense 24/7 when you're out of power, which is why you're going to see the Democrats have a lot of success in special elections.
Hutch, is your position just that Joe Biden should have rolled over and he was right to roll over, and that Joe Manchin was totally cool to call the shots, and you don't really see much of an issue with that? Like, you're not frustrated by this?
You're trying to frame it as though it's this moral issue, and it's not. It's not an issue of morality. It's an issue of practical consideration. If you only have so much time to deliver on your agenda with legislation that you can get passed through simple majority.
You're saying that all it takes to stop an entire piece of legislation is an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, and you're just going to, okay, Mr. Manchin, you're right.
If I thought that I could get something out of it, then obviously you fight. But I don't think you guys fully appreciate.
That's what's going to lead to more Donald Trump, though, dude.
I don't think you guys fully appreciate that the Congress sometimes says no.
I'm not saying that the problem was that the Congress gave. I just gave you 10 other solutions of what I would do if the Congress said no to me. My man, what I'm trying to point out is that if Democrats ever wanted to have a chance of winning, they have to deliver on some of these promises. That might have a really good argument as to why they didn't deliver on any of these promises.
You said your solution was you were going to do an executive order for everything that he would have done otherwise with the legislation, which is like a baby brain take.
That's not a baby brain take. I said, what could you do from the power of your desk?
You seem to suggest that the president can do whatever they want with a
Have you watched Donald Trump's presidency, my guy? Does it look like it's brain check?
That came on executive orders. Like,
the drain.
I already told you I agree with stacking the court. I already told you
that's a separate conversation.
Continuing the circle. It's an infinite circle at this point. Can I propose a slight change of topic? Because we talked about this. Well, I was just going to say, we've talked about this. One interesting topic to kind of tie into is right now, this is kind of a historical debate. What should Biden have done? But right now, okay, this is an interesting question. We've got this big kerfuffle with the Epstein files, okay? And there's a question, what should Democrats do with this controversy today? And what should they do if they capture a House in Congress in 2026? I think that's the flavor of the week, guys. That's what's going on right now.
It is the flavor of the week, and I think it actually does relate to what we were just talking about. Because in the modern era now, and like when we're not out of power, I am so pissed off at the people who are being pussies. I'm just so pissed off at the people who aren't fighters.
There is, Destiny. They wanted Biden to be Trump. They aren't disgusted by Trump's methods, only his results. These people don't care about the Constitution. It's not about that, though. Trump is destroying everything. And you can destroy a lot if you're a destructive person, but they don't want a liberal president or a left-leaning president to come in and destroy everything. They want them to like construct a whole bunch of things. It's significantly harder to do this, right? So you complain about Trump is able to do so much stuff via executive order. Okay, well, what's he trying to do? tariffs on the entire fucking world. Okay, so Biden comes in. What do you want him to do? Tariffs on the entire fucking world? No, that's not constructive. Trump can be destructive in a whole bunch of different ways, right? Trump wants to come in and what, like revoke birthright citizenship? Okay, he can do it with an executive order. What do you want Biden to do? What's similar to revoking birthright citizenship? Like adding, like it's just they're like Republicans are, especially Donald Trump, is like single-mindedly trying to dismantle. Like he dismantled the Department of Education and USAID. What do you want Biden to come to do? Dismantle departments of the government? It's just.
I'm going to be honest with you in terms of like the messaging on this, on Mamdani, like the fact that we have conservative or I don't know, centrist Democrats or whatever you want to call them coming out and not supporting the nominee in New York pisses me the off. So I think that we should absolutely wield the bully pulpit on issues like Epstein, on issues like everything that Trump is doing. And I don't like the current leadership is failing us on that front. And the era of Kristen Cinemas has to be over. You can maybe make the case, and I would make the case actually that the conditions in 2021 were difficult for Biden. They were really difficult. He did not make the most of it. I agree, but they were genuinely difficult. But now we can't go back to that era where we're fighting for mansions and cinemas, and we need to primary the out of people like Fetterman, out of all, and I don't care if they're really in these.
What you need to do is you need to win more seats. That's what the mission has to be. I'm sorry, but anybody who talks about the necessity to primary people and like a 50-50, 51-49 split, it's a deeply unserious conversation. You need to shore up your base and you need to win some real margins. You need some actual seats before you talk about fucking primarying people. Tickets are now on sale for the Houston leg of my anti-Trump Pangburn debate mayhem annihilation tour. If you've been at some of these events, get some airplane tickets, fly to Houston and come join me there. Or if you are on the West Coast or want to fly to the West Coast to hang out, I'll be touring there as well. Check out below. There is a link to buy tickets. The next tour date is August 2nd in Houston. And then there's a whole bunch afterwards all along the West Coast. Make sure you check out the link below. Don't miss it. Be there, buy merch. Maybe I'll even have some extra knives for you to buy. I misspoke. Add that.